Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. For today's CHRO podcast, we have a very special guest, our very own and new member of the TCG family, CHRO Pam Noble. Pam, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Laura, for inviting me.
So, Pam, what brought you to the Christopher Group?
So, Laura, really, a lot of it was one of the co-founders, and that is Tom Christopher. I have worked with Tom in the past. We've known each other for over 20 years, but I have also really value what he brings to the table as it relates to his core values, really aligned to my core values, whether it's servant leadership, whether it's integrity, whether it is finding the absolute right fit for the person and helping them celebrate when they get that role. So that's one aspect. The other piece is also the people of the organization. There are very few organizations, especially in a boutique HR space, where they are looking to identify people that have HR, but they are also HR professionals themselves. And so I think that brings a lot of credibility into the process. The other is the products. I mean, I really love the space and the uniqueness that this organization brings. You have the headhunting or the search piece, which focuses on the HR executives. And then you have the contingent workforce, which allows for unique and different assignments. And then the third aspect is the interim role, whether it's an interim chief human resource officer or an interim VP over comp and benefits. And let me tell you why I like that. I had an opportunity to be one of those consultants. And there is nothing better than going in and assessing an organization, which was one of the assignments that I've done, and then creating a template in which the new Chief Human Resource Officer has the ability to utilize. So it creates a playbook. Now, the uniqueness of this product is I may identify 5 core elements that need to be focused on. He or she may agree with that, but I may say that this is the number 2 priority, and he may believe that it's the number 1 priority. But it creates a foundation for them to actually understand some of the issues or concerns and even the successes that they can build upon so that they can really spend their time developing strong partnerships with their senior leaders, with their teams, and they don't have to go deep into the woods. That doesn't mean that they won't at a later date, but it creates a nice platform. And so that, in addition to being able to identify the right person, just creates a really nice synergy that I don't see in many places. So whether it's, having that relationship with Tom and our values aligning, whether it's the people of the organization or the uniqueness of the suite of products, this is a really special place, and it's exciting to be a part of it and being able to play a role in all of those aspects.
Pam, your background is very diverse. How did you come about building this?
I think some of it was luck, and some of it was, some thoughtful decisions on my end. So the luck part I talk about really kind of propelled me to really wanting and valuing the global experience. Early on in my career, I worked for United Airlines, and I originally started off hiring flight attendants, but that ultimately led to helping open many of our international locations across the world. So whether it's Brazil, Costa Rica, Europe, and spending months there. And so from that perspective, I gained my global perspective as well as my recruiting. And I took that to Motorola and ultimately started as a strategic staffing arm, which really looked at not only how are we finding the right skills, but how are we finding individuals that have the personality and style to fit within an organization, because that is just as critical as identifying somebody that has the right skills. And from there it was, I knew I wanted to be a Chief Human Resource Officer, and so it was being really thoughtful. And so I did take cuts in pay to go to other organizations that were smaller but allowed me to touch various pieces and parts of the organization from an HR space. So, I joined a small company in Cleveland when we moved to the Cleveland area. And I started off as an HR director of a business unit, and then asked, once the comp and benefits director came on board, to take over compensation. And he allowed me to do that. And from there, that's where I stepped in succession. So I wore a multitude of hats I would not have the ability to do in other organizations. And I continued down that path. And that has allowed me to not necessarily become an expert in every area of HR, but it has allowed me to experience those aspects, understand kind of the questions to ask, so that I could move around and be more thoughtful. It also allowed me to look at things from a strategic perspective and understand that the interconnectivity of the employee life cycle. So, as I said, some of it was luck, but then some of it was just really thoughtful movement on my part to make sure that I was filling those gaps.
What key ingredients do you believe it takes to become a successful HR leader?
I think some of what I've already spoken to, but I think there's two critical aspects. I think the first aspect really is understanding and knowing the business. And I think that that's critical, because you can't really advise a business leader or a department manager if you don't understand what the employees do or how they impact. So for me, it is really understanding that business, and then how to tell that story of how the employees help the business succeed, and vice versa, sharing that knowledge with the business leader so that they have better understanding of some of the challenges and some of the successes of the employees, and how to make and streamline different parts of the organization. So I think that is critical. I also think having a nice balance. I think a lot of times people will either be very pro-advocate of the employee or very pro-business, and it is a fine line that you dance. It's walking a tightrope and making sure that it is a win-win for everybody involved, both the business and the employees. And there's going to be, a lot of it is compromising. But a lot of it, too, is also really advising the leaders on what's happening within the organization. I have found myself, when I've gone out on visits, whether it's across the globe or within my own particular building, as I'm out walking around, I'm able to give them feedback that is real time. And I know that there's been a couple of occasions where I have helped change a business model because of the information that I was learning. So I think that is a correct balance.
Well, Pam, we are so excited to have you a part of our TCG team. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today.
Well, thank you, Laura, and I appreciate it.
And tune in next week for our continued conversations about HR.